what she inspired me to do, rather than try to copy paste her, finish something that she started. I mean, she really didn't get a lot of time to start anything. What she inspired me to do was just be myself, follow my passions, because again, you play the cards you're dealt. You only get this one life. You're you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Daughter's Inheritance. I am your host, Susan Seal, and I want to encourage you, if some of you, this may be your first episode to listen to, and you may have questions about the podcast, how it got started, who am I, all those things. I want to encourage you to go back and start at the first episode. Listen to that one. It tells you a little bit about why I started the podcast, my story a little bit, my relationship with my mother. So you get that foundation, and it kind of might make more of it come together. And then you can go and listen to some of the other stories that we keep adding every other week. And I am excited about the story we're going to hear today. I'm happy to welcome Kate Salter Gregory.
Hi.
Welcome, Kate, on a hot southern summer Mississippi day.
My favorite kind.
That's right. Kate is an associate professor with tenure, right? So that was fairly recent, so that's exciting. Yes. And director of the Mississippi Political Collections at our Mississippi State University libraries. Also a mom of 2, and how old are they?
My daughter is 7, and my son is 5. Okay, we're both headed to big school next year.
So you got your hands full with that.
Yes, ma'am.
We've kind of been in close proximity to each other. I've known your dad for a long time. Your husband actually went with me on a study abroad trip to China 10 years ago.
Yes, it was 2016.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's been that long, but yes.
We went to Shanghai and Tian and Beijing. We had about 20 people with us. He was our photographer from AgCom.
That was
I think I almost killed him on Mount Tai.
Oh, I think you did. That was a formative experience for him. Really prepared him for kids, I think.
It was a horrible rainy day, but it was a cool experience. But that was a tough trek for sure. You went to college with my niece. Y'all were in sorority together.
That's correct.
So, yeah.
We were Alpha Omicron Pies.
Yeah.
At the University of Mississippi.
Well, see, I wasn't going to mention that part. We've known each other and each other's family, but we've kind of gotten to know each other the last few months, some through the university, but mainly through Rotary.
Yes, ma'am.
That seems to be a common thread on several of our guests, is a Rotary connection somewhere. You were talking earlier, what did you say? You dabbled in oral history?
I do. My job title is sort of mysterious. What it means is, as director of the Mississippi Political Collections, I'm the archivist and reference librarian for some of the largest congressional and political archives in the region, including the papers of Senator John C. Stennis, who folks in this community will recognize as one of our most famous alumni, and he was in the Senate for about 41 years, so his papers are quite large, about 4,000 boxes, and it attracts historians of 20th century American politics and government from really all over the world. That's just one of them. We've got about 110 other unique political collections. Another one is Congressman Sonny Montgomery, a lot of other judges, elected officials, organizations. We got the papers of the Mississippi Republican Party. That's a wonderful resource. So if you're interested in Mississippi political history, American politics, government, anything of that nature, war, things like Watergate, Vietnam.
Place to be, huh?
Right, yeah. I mean, we get a lot.
Our technical director is smiling over there because when she was in college, she worked in the archives. Her first job under Frances Coleman.
Oh my God, she's
back
a
in the day.
I would not be where I am without Dean Coleman. She changed my life and a lot of others.
Yeah, the library I think wouldn't be where it is without
Absolutely.
Dean Coleman. Talking about oral history, why don't you give us a little bit of oral history of the early years of your mom?
Sure. Her name was Paula Jones Salter. She was the youngest and only daughter of Whitney and Merle Jones. Her mother's family, the Augustus family, they settled Noxubee County. And my great great grandfather on that side was one of the original trustees of Mississippi State when it was established. And then her dad's family was from Kentucky and East Tennessee. Most of Mom's family was Appalachian with some Gulf Coast and New Orleans ties as well. Her parents met as toddlers at a birthday party in Macon, Mississippi.
They dated young,
They
huh?
really did. We got a little write up that ran in the paper about that party from 1927. And so my grandfather, Whitney Jones, was a MSU educated civil engineer, World War II veteran. He ended up becoming a career naval captain in the Seabees, the Civil Engineering Corps, the Navy. And so they lived all over. When Mom grew up, she started kindergarten in London. She started high
Oh,
school in
wow.
California, DC, and South Carolina, some other places mixed in. But when her parents retired, she was about 16. They moved back to Macon because all their family was, for the most part, still in Mississippi. They bought land and a big house.
Now, were they in a big city in California?
They were in Port Hueneme, about an hour north of Los
Okay.
Angeles. So,
So
yes,
bigger than Macon, Mississippi.
a little bit, a little bit. And that was quite an adjustment for my mom in several ways, but she did it beautifully. And I think it's a testament to how important it was to her parents to keep her close to her Mississippi family. I mean, every time they could come home, they were with them. So, even though, yeah, she went to high school in California and, had these different moments in other parts of the world, she was always a Mississippian. Mississippi was always home. And I think the expectation was that she would always come back to Mississippi. They did, came back, and they didn't get unpacked good before my grandfather got diagnosed with cancer, and he passed away at 51 years old, and she was just 16 years old. And so it was just my uncle, my mother had an older brother. He's still living. He's a retired federal marshal. He lives in Tupelo. My uncle Gus, he's incredibly important to me. One of my best friends in the world now. He was already out of the house, and so it was just her and her mom for quite a few years. And I think that they made each other stronger through that experience. I really come from very strong women. And so mom, when it was time to go to college, she wanted to get a little bit further from home than Starkville, which I understand. And she ended up going up to Ole Miss, which is where her brother had gone, and several other members of her family had gone there too. She got an MBA. She went to business school. She got an MBA. She ended up becoming the deputy director of economic development for the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians. This was when early legislation was starting to come online to establish the gaming industry. And so she was able to be very involved in putting together the financing package that got the casinos down to the Choctaw Reservation there, which obviously has had an incredible economic impact on this part of Mississippi.
She worked some with Chief Philip Martin.
She did. He taught her everything about leadership and consensus building and crisis management and all these things. Yeah.
So back up just a little bit. And you're talking about that for a while, it was just your mom and her mother.
Yes.
I would imagine that brought them very close together, but
Definitely.
also I would expect there to be some tension and turmoil. And I mean, when, some with mothers and daughters, which is what we talk about, sometimes there's just the natural tension. And then if it's just the two of you, I would think that would bring you very close and through a lot of things together.
I definitely think it probably had an impact on her decision to go up to Ole Miss, just to get a little breathing room, be somewhere different, have a little room to grow, have a little room to grieve, and having the experience that I had of my mother passing away when I was 19, having that room to grieve, I think was really important. You're forced to grapple with some things on your own, which you're going to have to do at some point anyway. And I think it helped her establish a little bit of independence that later on she wouldn't have when she got sicker. But it also created a bond between them that lasted the rest of her life. My grandmother was her primary caregiver.
How did her mother handle her going out of town for college?
I actually think my
Did she think
grandmother.
it was a good idea? Or?
Oh yeah, definitely, because they had lived so many places and had had so many wonderful, interesting, diverse experiences. I think my grandmother wanted her to have more of that. For as many bulldogs as we had in our family, we had a good mix of rebels as
Mm-hmm.
well,
Mm-hmm.
and so she had very organic connections that up there, and my grandmother knew that. Yeah, she was incredibly supportive of her.
So now she's in college, your
Now
mom.
she's in college. She got to college and she got really active and involved in student government and in Greek life. And the summer after her freshman year, she and a bunch of other folks involved in student government, they took a trip up to Muncie, Indiana to Ball State University for a conference for college student government kids, and they had to go to this icebreaker event with some folks from other institutions. And the point of it was everybody wears a t-shirt from the school that they're from, and your job is to go talk to somebody who you don't know. And so my mom was like, I don't know what to do here, so I'm going to go pick on the guy in the Mississippi State shirt. And that guy's name was Sid Salter, and the rest is history. So
She went all that way to meet a guy from
yes, I do think my
Mississippi.
grandmother was a little taken aback when she came home and said, I believe I've met the love of my life. And he's from 40 miles away.
That's how it works sometimes.
That's
Though.
right.
They had things in common. So.
That's right.
How long did they date?
They dated all through college. I really don't think they had maybe about a 6 month cooling off period, as you do when you're in college. But they always came back to each other, and by the end of college, I think that they knew that they wanted to do life together, and they got married pretty young. Mom was 22, he was 23, and they started off together.
Their areas of interest were the same
They
from a
were.
career standpoint, or
I
close
think
to the same.
so. Mom wanted a career. She had her master's degree. She was really, really proud of her education. And she was just sort of a dynamo. She had ideas. She was incredibly creative. She was very confident, and she liked politics. I don't know that she necessarily wanted a career in traditional, like, campaign politics, but I do think that she had an interest in maybe at some point working for the betterment of the public sector through economic development. And of course, that was going to mean kind of soft politics. And so she was really good at relationship building with people in power, a lot of people who were older than her and had more experience. She was interested in learning from them. And then I think my dad's job just sort of complemented that. He too built relationships through his work. And I think for a time they really were able to kind of feed off each other and push each other into spaces where they otherwise may not have been quite as comfortable.
They were a dynamic duo, huh?
Definitely.
Now, how old was she when she was working for the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians?
She was young. It was her first big girl
Big girl
job,
job.
right? They moved to Philadelphia right after they got married, and my dad was working at the Neshoba Democrat, and she was working out at the reservation, and that was her job until she had to retire with her illness.
How old was your mother when she realized she had MS?
I believe she was 24. And she had had some indications that something wasn't quite right when she was in graduate school. So, her last year in Oxford, she would walk. She lived very close to the Oxford Square. And so she'd walk up there with friends. And there was one evening, I think she was walking back from a night out, and she had on heels, and she just like lost feeling in her leg and just tripped and fell, and thought, well, that was weird. And then just sort of isolated incidents over the next couple of years. They got married in that period of time. And I want to say it was in their first year, maybe second year of marriage, they finally realized that this was something real. And so she ended up going and getting a very early MRI. And from there on, they got hooked up with a neurologist, and she got her first diagnosis with primary progressive multiple sclerosis, which is one of the most intense forms of the disease that a person can have. At that time, medicine was not particularly advanced on it, nothing like it is now. So it was a mystery to everybody involved. And it was pretty devastating to them.
Sure. Yeah, just that realization, thinking of what might be coming and not necessarily knowing, but knowing obviously it's not a great thing.
Well, it's certainly not the thing that you think you're signing up for when you've just walked down the aisle
Sure.
and early 20s and you've got the whole world out in front of you.
Your career's going great.
That's
So,
right.
what was her personality like? Was she outgoing? I mean, you talk about going, to the square with her friends and stuff. Was she that outgoing, never met a stranger kind of person?
She was. She was a just terribly confident woman. She was at ease with everyone that I ever saw her around. She was brave. She was opinionated. She was a clear communicator. She didn't really have time for a lot of nonsense, and she'd let you know. Mm-hmm. She felt good about the things that she believed in. She wasn't aggressive about it, mm-hmm. but
just confident.
Yeah, she was.
Was her mother like that?
Oops, absolutely. we describe her as a battle axe, and she was. She had to be really tough, especially after what happened to her husband at age 50. So she really lived two separate lives herself, and she had to do that alone.
So how did her mother handle the diagnosis?
I don't know. That's a great question. I never really talked to her about that. She wasn't that kind of a. She held her.
She just dealt with it.
And that's right.
Let's go on, and
it was just the reality. Mm-hmm. I always sort of heard, you play the cards you're dealt, mm-hmm. and that's what she did. Mm-hmm. She adjusted. She pivoted, and the entire goal became take care of Mama. When I came along, take care of Kate. Mm-hmm. And that was the game.
So how did the diagnosis change her career?
At first, I don't think it was very drastic. They were able to, MS, even the strain that she had, which was so aggressive, doesn't typically like younger bodies. And so I think she had a lot of her own physical reserves to kind of get her through really until her early 30s. And the first 10 years were manageable. She, lost mobility, but she was able to work for the most part. I want to say around the time she was 32, 33, that's when she lost the ability to drive. And at that point, she sort of kind of forced into retirement.
So you weren't here yet because they hadn't been married very long.
That's right. She was diagnosed, I think, 24. And I don't think they really had intention of having children that quickly. But it became apparent in early conversations with her neurologist that if she was ever going to have a biological child of her own, which was a dream and a goal of hers always, that they had to go ahead and do it. Otherwise, her body would not be able to tolerate the pregnancy, and she would certainly have no hope of, being able to be any kind of present mom with a child. And so I was born when she was 26 years old. And
so she hadn't had the diagnosis long at that.
She had not had it very long at all. And I think if they had gone for a second and third opinion, they probably would have said, you don't even need to do that.
Sure, but yeah.
As I said, Mom would not be budged.
Yeah, this is what she wanted to do. Well, it reminds me a little bit of Steel Magnolias when in your mom, just in what you're telling me, she would be one of those, I'd rather have 15 minutes of wonderful than a lifetime of nothing special.
100%.
Yeah.
It's sweet that you make that connection because that moment in that film makes me think of her a lot.
Sure, yeah. So they decide to start a family, still working. And doing all the things. I'm sure just the diagnosis kind of looming, but just pushing through, and we're going to live our life, and we're going to start a family. What was it like growing up in that household? What was she like as a young mother?
Oh, I had the most wonderful childhood. I can't say enough wonderful things about it. Both of my parents just treated me like a princess every day, multiple times a day. They told me how thankful and grateful they were for me. They told me how important I was to them. I don't know if I always believed it, but I always heard it. And I think deep down, carrying that security with me has been essential to my success as an adult and being able to rebuild from her loss. That love has just stayed with me the whole time. They gave me as normal of a childhood as you could possibly expect up to a point.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point where her illness became so severe that we had to really reorient our lives and our expectations of each other around that.
Sure.
But my first 8, 10 years, little kid years, were wonderful.
So sometimes you think of an only child as being spoiled,
Hmm.
um, and sometimes overprotected. But it seems like they kind of made you strong, though. I mean,
uh,
is there a balance there? Because you
Definitely.
seem like a strong. You had to grow up fast because your mother was sick your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a maturity, there's a strength. Where did that come in? Did they kind of teach that to you, or did you kind of build that through the situation?
I think a little bit of all of it. I also think a lot of it was God.
Mm-hmm.
I think that He knew the kind of child that they needed when they needed me. And I just sort of adapted to the reality. It was the only reality that I knew. They didn't spend a lot of time dooming about it. Just, again, this is the cards that we have been dealt. We got to live our lives. It's the only one we got.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I knew it wasn't normal. And as I got older, there were a lot of ways that the experience would sort of other me away from other girls my age. I remember taking dance lessons, and it was time for our recital photos. And I remember being back there, and I didn't have my makeup on like everybody else did. And I knew that, like, something is missing here. Somebody is missing here. But one of the other moms just grabbed me up, put some lipstick on me, and we went right on.
We got this.
That's right.
Did you tell me that you loved being an only child, that you couldn't imagine having?
I did. I did love being. This is going to make me sound spoiled, but I did love being the center of my
Yeah.
parents' attention. But it wasn't from an ego standpoint. It was, again, from a secure.
Mm-hmm.
I almost drowned in a catfish pond when I was 3 years old.
Now, see, that's a true Mississippi story.
Yeah.
I almost drowned in a catfish pond.
And I can still see little fishy faces coming right next to me. And my dad, thankfully, Eagle Scout, came in and got me out. And I remember, I don't, remember as much about coming out of the water, but I do remember right after I got dried off, they at the hotel, they put me in bed with them, and they just wrapped their bodies around me. And, we slept like that. And when I imagine heaven,
Mm-hmm.
that's what
That's
it
it.
feels like to me. Mm-hmm.
So you had a lot of, with the sickness, there were a lot of tough things. What are some of the fun memories that you have of your mom?
Mom had an incredible sense of humor, even in the worst of her illness. She loved to laugh. She didn't take herself seriously at all. She was confident, but she knew she was just any other person. She loved adventure. She loved color outside the lines and press on her boundaries. And I think now I understand that that was part of the way that she kept herself healthy. And you hear people now, like, maybe who are going through cancer, doctors will encourage, do the things that you feel like you can do. If you can work, go to work. If you feel like going to church, go to church. Try to live as normal of a life as possible, because a lot of it is kind of psychological.
Mm-hmm.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. And if you resign yourself to, I can't, I won't, I shouldn't, it'll just stop.
Yeah. You said something that stuck with me when we were first talking about this. It kind of made me think that, when you lose somebody, there's a tendency to kind of round out the edges, to think of only the good things, and sometimes put them on a pedestal and the memory is perfect. And you said you have tried very hard to remember your mother, and I'm paraphrasing, but to remember her as a woman, a human woman. I thought that was interesting, and I thought that was very mature. But tell me about that. Tell me why that kind of, I want to have that memory of her as real and not this perfect person because she's human. And how did you do that?
I never wanted to, after she died, I never wanted to enter into a relationship with her where I idolized her and put her up on a pedestal, because I knew that if I did that, I would never achieve it. I would constantly be trying to be someone else. I would not be trying to be myself.
You would be trying to live up to.
Yes. And I knew that I couldn't go chase her dreams. Her dreams weren't my dreams. Not all of her dreams were particularly good. They may not have worked out.
Right.
I knew that in a lot of ways I was very different from her. She was really athletic. I'm not. I don't care about any of that at all. I like to read, and that's about it. So really, what she inspired me to do, rather than try to copy paste her, finish something that she started. I mean, she really didn't get a lot of time to start anything. What she inspired me to do was just be myself, follow my passions, because again, you play the cards you're dealt. You only get this one life. You're you.
Was that verbal? I mean, did she say those things to you, or did she just show those things to you and you just knew it?
Almost
or
every
did y'all
day.
have those conversations?
I mean, we had some conversations, but she also showed it through her actions. One thing that she really demanded from me was independence and competence. Here's a memory. When I was about 3, we were walking into my grandmother's house. She had sort of a rough driveway, and my mom was struggling to carry me, and so she put me down on the ground and she just said, walk. And I had a little Care Bear figurine in my hand, and I said nothing. I just took that little Care Bear figurine and sat it on the ground in front of me, and I said, walk. From then on, it sort of became a theme. You got to be responsible. You got to do a lot of stuff for yourself. You've got to be aware of and attend to a lot of your own needs. You don't really need to be a problem. You need to help your mom and do everything that you can realistically do.
Did you resent that at any time?
Sometimes.
I mean, I think I would.
Sometimes I did, especially when I would see other girls my age having everything done for them by their mamas. I had to work a little harder at everything. I had to teach myself to cook. I had to teach myself a lot about makeup and hair and things of that nature as I got older.
Was she a good? I always ask this because I like cooking. Was she a good cook?
I think she had the potential to be.
Just didn't have time to.
Yeah, she didn't have time. She had a lot of interest in it, and the things that she did make were fantastic. Oh my gosh, she made the best Christmas candies in the world. She made like those Buckeye balls, sometimes they call them peanut butter balls. She made toffee, just some of these candies that are more like science experiments. If you get it just 1 degree over, it's completely ruined. You got to start over. She was so great at that stuff.
Well, now you're known for some cakes.
I am known for cakes. They're very country and they're not very pretty, but they taste good.
What are they? Remind me.
My grandmother's coconut cake, which is a sheet cake, and my recipe for lemon cake.
That's the one you brought to the Rotary event.
That's right.
Yeah, we're standing around, and it became this whisper. You could hear everybody talking. Kate brought the lemon cake. There's Kate's cake over there.
It wins me a lot of friends.
And that was your grandmother's?
No,
that was yours. That's yours.
That's just one that I found. Coconut was my grandmother's.
I gotcha. So you can claim that one as your own.
Yes.
So things got harder when you went to college. Definitely. Was that when she really? Right about then, when she started to turn.
I think so. There were really 2 moments. One big one was when I was in 9th grade. She had a real turn then where she started to lose mobility in sort of the core of her body. She had no strength to even kind of sit up, So there was no more going in a wheelchair, going in a cart, getting in a car, things of that nature that had allowed her a degree of autonomy and independence and normalcy. And that ended up resulting in several months at Methodist rehab in Jackson. And I mean, Mama effectively lived there, and that totally upended the daily routine of our lives. That was the closest she ever got to, what we thought might be the end. But she came back from it. She pulled out of it, and she was able to go home and live at home. But from then on, it had to be, 24/7 care.
And y'all were living where?
We were living in Forest.
In Forest.
We had built a house.
Which is how far from Jackson?
Yeah,
for people who don't know.
Forest is about halfway between Jackson and Meridian on I-20. It's in Scott County. The joke is if you put a map of Mississippi on the wall and you close your eyes and you throw a dart at it, you're probably going to hit Forest because it's right in the middle.
You spent a lot of time in the hospitals.
I did.
Just to be with her.
I did, especially high school on. I did spend a lot of time in hospitals. Ate a lot of hospital food. I had really strong opinions about the cheeseburger at St. Dominic's. It was very good. And I adapted to it. I adjusted to it. I wanted to be with her.
It just became what you did. We talked sometime about the new normal, but that just kind of became your new normal.
That was the card I got dealt.
Yeah. Because you mentioned something one time, we're talking about hospitals, and I was like, does it give you PTSD? And you said it didn't really.
Oddly, I feel like I sort of thrive in a hospital setting. I snap into action. I want to help people. I want to ask questions.
It's a homey in a way because you spent so. Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
From the 9th grade to college, those were tough, very limited years.
Very.
Your senior year in high school, there's a lot going on these days. It's amazing how many things are going on.
Absolutely.
How were you able to manage that?
Couple things. My parents had an incredible amount of trust in me to do some things independently. I got a driver's license. I got a hardship driver's license before I turned 15. I don't have the cleanest driving record in the world, but for a teenager, I did okay. I did the best I could. So I was able to drive myself to school and go to some of my extracurriculars. One of the things that I'm really proudest of from that period, even though it's all sort of a blur, I ended up in the Forest High School Hall of Fame. I was in the band. I was editor of the yearbook. I won Most Versatile. I'm still so proud of winning Most Versatile at Forest High School, and it has continued to be my personality. Do the most with what you have, with the time that you have, make an impact. And I loved my community. I loved my school, and I was so thankful to be there that I tried to give them my best, and I think I did.
Obviously you did, yeah.
And I bring that attitude here.
Well, that might have helped you just deal with some things too.
Definitely.
And all those.
Staying busy.
Were there other women that helped you?
No
were
doubt.
there other women that were really influential in those, particularly 9 to 12 year?
Yes, absolutely. Several of my school teachers, the women in my church at the Methodist Church in Forest. My church was central to my life. It was really the connective tissue between the early years of my childhood when things were quote unquote normal-ish, right? To the end when things were just blown to smithereens. My church was there. They were there with me in Sunday school. They were there with me in my big moments in high school when I was in choir and doing plays and all the things that my mom couldn't be there for. They were there. When we were in the hospital, they were there. I think my faith formed out of some of those really prolonged hospital stays where I would spend time with our pastor then, a man named Milton Watley, who answered some of my dumbest questions about. I remember having a conversation with him about the Holy Trinity and just going, I don't get it. How does this work?
Did you get a good answer to that?
I did. I don't know if it would pass muster at seminary.
But it worked for you.
Yes, it did. He put it this way in a way that stuck with me. He said he pointed at my mom and he said, "Look at your mom. You know how she is your mother, but she's also a daughter. She's also a wife. She's also a sister, a friend." And she explained it how, or he explained it how just like that, we contain those multitudes and we are all those things, right?
That's very good.
Yeah.
When you were in college, you spent a lot of time on the road, going back and forth to see your mom. And sometimes, because I mean, when I lived in Atlanta. When my dad was sick, you had to make those decisions a lot of times. Is this bad enough? I need to go, or are we okay? Of course, that was it was 4.5, 5 hours, but yours was how far?
Three and a
Three
half,
hours.
something
So
like
I mean,
that.
it's not just a hey, let's run over. How did you manage? How did you manage in college and making those decisions of when to go and
I listened to my dad. I trusted him completely. Still do. He's still my best friend in the world. I could hear things in his voice sometimes. I had a really good instinct. And I think having a good instinct is a direct result of good parenting. I knew how to listen and observe when something wasn't quite right. And I also think it's just God. I think it was a God thing. I think He was working on me. I just had this feeling of, I miss my mom. I want to go home. I want to see her. I want to spend time with her. College is great. I love my friends, but this doesn't really matter much to me right now. I'm going to just do my classes and I'm going to go home and see mama. I also dealt with homesickness in various ways all through my childhood, which I think comes back to the amount of security that my parents gave me at home. My happiest days were just at home, you know. The fall semester of my freshman year was pretty normal. I went through Rush, made a lot of friends, spent a lot of time in my dorm. I remember a lot of movie nights in my dorm. Went to the football games. Ole Miss was pretty bad that year. Ole Miss was bad all through college. So I wasn't really attracted to sticking around for the sports product at that time. But I had a pretty normal fall and I got on my feet, right? I built myself a little network of friends. I got in my sorority. I felt safe up there. And then after Christmas, I think I came home for Christmas that year, and I remember not wanting to go home after Christmas, or not wanting to go back to Oxford after Christmas. I just didn't want to leave. And it came up on time to go to school, in January, and it just felt like a chore putting my stuff in the car. I left as much as I could at home. I said, I'll come back. And I came home every single weekend that spring semester.
wow?
Before she died that May the 1st. And there were times when it felt like the car was driving itself.
We've talked to women who their mother had Alzheimer's or dementia, and they call it the long goodbye. Did yours feel like that also
I don't think
in a different way?
Yeah, I don't know that I knew that I was saying goodbye. I just knew that I felt like time was precious.
Did she have words of wisdom or things to share with you in those last months in particular?
I
Because
remember
probably felt it was coming as well.
probably, but she never said anything
Yeah.
like that. Her instinct was always to protect me and to give me as much normalcy and joy as she possibly could, even when she was flat on her back. We were finding ways to stay connected and laugh and talk about anything else. One of the things that I did during that period is I started bringing home my best friends from college. I had a roommate who is still one of my dearest friends. Her name is Sarah Siebert. She's from Chicago, and she and I were in our sorority together. She came home with me and spent the weekend, one weekend, so she got to see Forrest and she met my mom. Another roommate of mine, Katie Mulrooney, her married name is Dale, incredibly special to me. She came home for a weekend, and there were a couple of others who, again, I don't think I ever outright said it. It was just a feeling. These are two friends who are going to be friends of mine for life, and they were.
You were wanting to kind of mesh your worlds.
I was wanting to mesh my worlds. And every year on the anniversary of my mom's death, Sarah reaches out to me and she says, I am so honored that I met your mom. So I did. I tried to bring what mattered to me at Ole Miss home to her. And I definitely went AOPI because of her.
Was she an AOPI?
Absolutely. I was a legacy.
Yeah, and I'm sure she appreciated that too. I'm sure she loved getting to a glimpse into your college experience and your friends. And
Ole Miss and the sorority those were the happiest years of her life. Dad would say, oh no, it was the years she was raising you. Kids are hard. MS is hard. The happiest years of her life were college, no doubt.
yeah,
And so I had grown up just sort of hearing legend of my mom disco dancing on the square and going to swaps and just living her best life. And I definitely think that kind of got stuck in my psyche, and I wanted a little piece of that for myself. But I also knew I was smart enough then. I wouldn't have ever outright said it, but that was the one experience that I could just have with her. Not even with my dad, not with my grandmother, not with anybody else. That was me and her.
was that intentional when you went to Ole Miss, or did you kind of piece it together later, or was it like I'm going to go there because I want to have the same experience she did, so we can share that, or did it just kind of happen organically?
I knew that I wanted to go to Ole Miss because of her. However, that instinct that I was telling you about a little while ago about how I didn't want to put her up on a pedestal. When I got to Ole Miss, I said, okay, I'm going to go through Rush with an open mind. And I mean, I'm just from Forest. I'm not super connected in that way. I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know if I would even get into her sorority. And I tried to keep my expectations pretty low. So I went up there and I went through Rush, saying I could be in any one of these sororities. But as the process went on, it revealed itself to me pretty quickly that I was going where I was supposed to be.
When she passed away, you still made it through that semester.
I did. She passed away on May the 1st, which was dead in the middle of finals. And so I was mostly done with my classes. There were a couple of, all of my professors, all the various disciplines, in your freshman year, you got a history class and a science class, you're kind of going through the basic core stuff. All of them moved heaven and earth to make it so that I did not have to take an incomplete if I didn't want to. And I didn't want to. I wanted to finish strong and have my summer to just rest and grieve. I worked, but I mostly stayed home and just rested. And that was a real gift to me. I think that had I had to take on falling behind on my plan to get out in 4 years, that would have been devastating in a different way. And I think it would have had a dramatic impact on my ability to heal and move forward. I was able to stay in lockstep with my friends because of that, which was a gift.
You felt like you completed something, and now I've got the time
Yes,
to go through
for
the
sure.
process.
No, I don't think Mom, certainly this wasn't her plan, but I think, again, God, I think it happened at a time where God gave me that kind of opening to go, I can give you a clean break. I'm going to give you these months to get back on your feet. And then I did, sophomore year, I went back up there and that was it.
How often do you have those moments where you do something or say something and you just, oh, that was my mother?
More than you would think. And it's coming out more the older I get, too. She had a really famous saying that didn't always endear her, depending on the context. But it was, I'm sorry you feel that way. That was her saying, you have hit my line.
I hate it for you. I'm done.
Yeah. And she was just not a person who was going to spend a lot of time in conflict with other people. She didn't care about winning or losing. She just said, "This is where my priorities are and what matters to me. And if we don't see eye to eye, I love you, but go with God." And
So
at
are
the
you
end of that,
opinionated?
very opinionated.
You didn't have a
Um,
choice, did you?
well, I don't think so. But both of my parents were incredibly intellectually gifted. I mean, I still think they're just the smartest people that I've ever met. And they fed off of each other. I mean, they just, that, and I remember, hearing them in the background, sort of talking about the news of the day and all of that. And I learned a lot from them. And Mom knew she'd had such an experienced youth, living so many different places, a lot of different perspectives. She knew her moral center, right from wrong, and didn't have a whole lot of time for, you know.
Our mothers are obviously the influence in our life and the inheritance we get from them, physical things, mannerisms, all the things. But quite often, there's other women that have influence on our lives as well. Your stepmom has been that for you also. And I would think if it were me, I might have some resentment. You didn't have much of that.
No. I like to say that some people get two parents, but I got three. Leilani, has poured her entire spirit into being the best stepmom she knows how to be to an adult child who has been through what I have been through. And one of the things that she has done so beautifully is respect and help celebrate my mom's memory.
Because she knew your mom.
She did. She did know her. She was from Forest as well. Worked at the newspaper. I mean, she was with us through some of our hardest periods. There's a timeline where somebody marries Sid Salter and his daughter, but she married us, the real us. She saw us behind what was on the pages in newspapers. She saw our struggles, and she loved us through it, and she has continued to love us through it. You know.
Do you call her mother, or do you call her Leilani?
I call her Lay or Leilani in casual conversation, but now she's Mimi.
Okay. Yeah, that takes on a whole other.
And there's no step Mimi. There's no none of this. They're just, and his name is Big Dog. They're just Big Dog and Mimi.
Mimi and Big Dog. So as we wrap up, I often ask, what is the inheritance that your mother gave you? And then also, what are you passing on to your children? You work on a university campus. You have influence on young people other than even your own children. But what is something that she's given to you? And then how are you passing that on to the next generations?
There's two things. One of them is church. For me, it's the United Methodist Church. That's what she gave me. That was her church. Raising me in church, everything that I love and know and believe about just living life and raising a family and a community comes from her emphasis on making church a key component of our social lives. I think she knew that you needed that fabric to tether you to yourself. You needed an inheritance in that way. Wherever you lived, there was a church for you to go home to. And she knew that it was really crucial to help you keep your moral center. The second thing that she gave me was a sense of self, a sense of purpose, being really goal oriented. I don't give up. I don't quit. I'm a stubborn ox. I don't think it's my best quality, but I know who I am, what I want, and what I believe, and I have those same dreams for my kids and my family and my community. She gave me a work ethic, and then my dad just, put that in stereo sound. They both were just incredibly driven, hardworking people, and I would not have the success that I have had they not both given me that ambition and that drive and that self-belief. I work a little too hard. I don't know how to put an away message on my email to save my life. But I do have, the great thing is I have people now who love me enough to tell me it's time to turn off. They give me space to just be a mess and fall apart and not have it all together.
You still grieve her at certain times?
Absolutely. I grieve her
Does
every
it
day.
does it hit you out of the blue sometime and surprise you?
Yes. And I lean into it. I may not throw it all over social media. I may not,
Yeah.
I don't have to leave work. It doesn't end my day. But if I hear a
That's fair.
song or I smell something or I see a flower or just anything, a conversation with a friend, when someone makes me feel the kind of seen and loved and secure as I felt in that bed with both my parents, that's when I feel her. And I think about her, I cry, and I'm just thankful to have that still in my heart.
So you have 2 children.
I do.
Do you have any little stubborn oxes?
Absolutely, I do. As my dad says, we all got the kids we deserved out of this deal. They are just 2 of the most confident little kids. My daughter is beautiful. She's athletic. She's strong. She's brave. She will talk to a fence post. I've seen her go up to elected officials the same way that I did when I was 3 years old. She believes in herself. My son is incredibly athletic and strong. I think he's going to end up being a coach one day. I taught myself to play guitar a couple of years ago, and I practice a lot still. I'm not very good at it, but I have fun. And he will sit by me and he'll hold my tabs up on my phone and he'll go, "You got this, Mom." I'll mess up and he'll go, "It's okay. Just try it again."
He's an encourager.
He absolutely is. And in a way, I have my parents back in the form of my children. They push me
That's
forward.
a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's kind of the thread that just keeps running through.
Absolutely.
Right? Well, thank you for being here today, Kate, and for
I
telling
loved
your
it.
story.
Thank you for having me.
And as always, thank you, listeners, for joining us today as well. I never know what's going to resonate with you because it could be one line that Kate or our other guests say, or it could be a specific situation, or maybe the entire story. But I think that today there are certainly opportunities throughout our conversation of inspiration, maybe an affinity, or maybe some insight into the current relationships that you have. Don't forget to subscribe to A Daughter's Inheritance and share it with a friend. I'd appreciate that. And until next time, as my mother advised, be patient, be kind, and be fair.